Gravity is negative 9.8 meters squared. You've learned that in physics? Gravity is negative 9.8 meters squared. Okay? Well, if you haven't learned that yet, don't listen to this video. Okay. With that, yes, with that, every time you throw something in the air, it comes back down. Unless it's got glue on it or a dart or you make up something that doesn't work. But for the most part, if I throw something up in the air, it will come back down. Okay, that's because of gravity. If you want to make an equation that models the height of anything you throw up in the air and wait for it to come back down, it will always make a quadratic equation with an x squared because gravity is per meter squared. In that quadratic equation, the number in front of what is being squared will always be half of negative 9.8. They made this one a little bit easier for you by making it 5. Technically, if it was a better example, it should be 4.9. Now, that's just the physics behind this equation. This equation is actually going to be easy for us to solve because they've given us the equation. You don't have to figure out the equation from scratch, but a person is on a cliff 55 meters tall. 55 meters here. Here's the guy. Woohoo! Right? Everybody, when they're on a cliff, likes to what? Throw things off of it. It's so much fun, right? This is Jim. Okay? He's got a stone. His brother down here, not so swift, is trying to catch it. And he's throwing it off of the cliff. A little stone. Boom, 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 boom. We would, unless he climbs down and kicks it off. Kicking off large stones hurts the feet. All right. So we've got an equation for this. The approximate height of the stone, h meters above the water, we've got very dark waters in this question, is given by that equation. When will the stone hit the water? Okay. If we want to find out when the stone hits the water, what is the height of the stone when it hits the water? 0. So we get an equation, 55 plus 30t minus 5t squared. We get an equation that looks like our quadratic equations. Because it's telling us to the nearest tenth, I know that it's not going to factor very nicely. So I'm going to solve this one by completing the square. How do we complete the square? We get the x squared and the x by itself. This time I have t. I'm going to add 5t squared to this side. I'm going to subtract 30t to move it to this side. And get the t squared and the t by itself on one side. Of course, we don't have it completely by itself because there's a 5 in front. So I'm going to divide everything by 5. Leave space to complete the square. Right? This is always half. Divide that by 2. You get minus 3. Minus 3 times minus 3 will give us in there, so we'd have to add plus 9 on that side. We'll get 20. Square root both sides. Don't forget the plus or minus. And we get t is equal to, add 3 to both sides, plus or minus root 20. That means there's going to be two answers when we go to our calculator to put this in to find the decimals. One will be 3 plus root 20. So I'll do that one first. That gives me, to the nearest tenth, 7.5. And the other one would be 3 minus the square root of 20, negative 1.47. Only one of these answers actually makes sense.
Can I make a guess? It's probably the one that isn't negative.
Probably approximately 7.5 seconds. What we're going to learn in chapter 4 is what these graphs look like. Just one second. If I scroll back up, if you throw a stone off of the cliff, it'll go up in the air until gravity gets a hold of it, then it will come down. Okay? When it hits right here is 7.5 seconds later. The reason the calculator also told you a negative answer is it says if it was going along this path in the past, it would also hit the ground back there. This would have been at negative, because this is at 0 seconds. This would have been our negative 1 point, what was it? 1.47, negative 1.5. Yes? I typed this into my calculator. This one was 3 plus root 20, and this one was 3 minus root 20. There's no plus or minus button on your calculator. You have to do them separate.
What's that in green up there?
The plus 9 that never appeared completely? Yes. Yes. The plus 9 comes from completing the square. If I think about t minus 3, t minus 3, and I think of this as FOIL, the last terms have to be a 9 in order to make that a perfect square. But if I add 9 to one side, I have to add 9 to the other. Yes? That part of blank is the part called completing the square, and you can watch that on a video earlier. Questions you can do for this one are 6 and 7.